everybody, how you doing today? My name's Andrew.
I'm Gavin.
Hi.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Aunt Becky.
I'm Grandpa. I'm Matt. And we're some of the Veggie Boys. And we'd like to thank you for stopping by. If you're new here, please consider subscribing because we can grow a lot of stuff on the farm, but one thing we can't grow is this channel without your help. Welcome back, everyone. It's so nice to see you. Right now, we are inside the farm market. Morning has been very, very busy, but we've got a lot accomplished. As you can see, farm market is all set up and we are filling it up. Not only was this done this morning, but we also got the animals all taken care of. We were at it early. Now, there's a good reason for that because there's a lot that needs to be accomplished. We have many people looking for tomatoes and peppers today. So that's probably where we're gonna be spending a bulk of our time out in the fields, hopefully. You know, things can always be thrown in there. I've seen it happen before, like a crazy storm. That was here yesterday. Yeah, it was pretty wild. A lot of trees knocked over, but we're all okay. Now inside the cooler, we do have quite a bit of stuff, but it always turns out that we have in the cooler isn't always what you need, which is why we got so much picking to do. First things first, whatever tomatoes we do have here this morning need to be put in boxes. We have orders that aren't picked, so we're just trying to get everything put together. Those are some beautiful tomatoes. So our next job is really just here at the farm market, getting everything pulled out of the shop that we put away last night. We really didn't know how much it was gonna rain last night after that initial intense storm went through. So we wanted to bring all these pumpkins down into the shop because they're all in cardboard bins. If these bins were to get all wet, they start to get fragile and then they could actually bust open and we would have pumpkins everywhere. Believe me, I've seen it happen before and it's not fun to deal with. So we just felt like it was a good idea to bring them all down into the shop, but that brings us into a whole new problem. Since they're all in the shop, we can't sell them, so we need to take them back up top. I was just talking with Dad for a few minutes and we feel like it would be a good idea for me to go get started on picking tomatoes. There's not much I can do to help him bring all this stuff up since he needs to use the forklift. So we just feel like it would be a good idea for me to head out there and get started picking. Well, I made it out to the field and it looks like I'm not the only one out here. Daniel and Mom were getting some blossoms and picking some basil. There does seem to be a lot of tomatoes here, which is a good sign for us. I'm gonna be focusing my time out here on plum tomatoes. We need both round and plum, but it does seem to take a little bit longer to get the plum tomatoes harvested. I don't know how many baskets we need for today and the weekend. I'm expecting it to be a lot. So I might as well just get jumped right in here and start picking tomatoes. Now these are the kind of gold mines I like to find while I'm picking, where there's a lot of ripe tomatoes all together. You just have to watch with some of these tomatoes that have been on the ground. They're more susceptible to rot if they've been on the ground. Thankfully, I haven't seen too much yet in this variety of plum tomatoes I'm working on. And we've been able to find nice sections where there's been a lot of beautiful tomatoes. And just to emphasize how nice the tomatoes are, I went from right there to there and I got a full basket. You know, occasionally I will get asked, what do I look for when I'm harvesting tomatoes? And it's an interesting question, but I understand not too many people are harvesting the amount of tomatoes we are. Ultimately, I'm just looking for nice color, and I'm also looking for tomatoes that don't have any imperfections that would allow us to not keep them as canning tomatoes. Like this is a wet cut. We don't want to keep that because that is already starting to rot, and it would not be able to last even a day for someone to start canning. A lot of these are orders, so I'm looking for firmer tomatoes, ones that'll hold up for a few days or even up to a week, but not all these tomatoes are gonna be waiting for a week till they're cut up and used. Some of these are gonna be used tomorrow. So we're just looking for nice tomatoes. Ultimately, I'm just looking for the color to be nice. And we're gonna sort these at home. So if I do pick any that are bad or have imperfections that I can't use, we'll be able to sort that out during the cleaning process and the sorting process. But yeah, that's kind of what I look for. Just ripe tomatoes. This color is one of my favorite colors to pick. It's not too difficult picking tomatoes when they look like this. The only time I think picking tomatoes is difficult is earlier on in the year when you have to walk the whole field just to fill baskets, or at the end of the harvest when a lot of the tomatoes are splitting from the rain. Then it's hard to find nice tomatoes because they're, one, rotting, or two, completely filled with bugs. And that is not fun for picking, believe me. But I'll tell you what is fun this time of the year. Look at those tomatoes. They're slippery. Something I've always found that's really, really neat about tomatoes is that when one section of tomatoes starts to ripen up, it seems that the rest of the field starts to ripen up as well. And growing up, I never really understood why it happened, but then I started asking questions and my dad enlightened me as to why this happened. What's neat about tomatoes and other fruits and vegetables is as they start to ripen up, they give off a gas, which is a hormone called ethylene. And what that hormone does is it essentially tells the fruit or the vegetable to start ripening. And what's interesting is that's what causes tomatoes to ripen up in a bunch. When one tomato starts to turn, the ethylene starts to spread and the other tomatoes ripen up as well, which is really, really cool if you ask me. Now, tomatoes will naturally produce the ethylene to start ripening, but in some cases you can actually use ethylene to ripen up tomatoes that are green. See, this tomato has already started to ripen. It is putting off ethylene. This is technically a vine-ripened tomato. But in some places, they will harvest tomatoes that are this color. Now, they'll be a little larger than this, but they will be green with no ethylene being given off. Now, those tomatoes do not have the same flavor as vine-ripened tomatoes. Tomatoes will ripen from the inside out. So the ethylene being added to green tomatoes doesn't allow the tomato or the fruit or vegetable to produce a nice flavor. So that is why you will notice that vine-ripened tomatoes will always have a better flavor because they were ripened naturally. Now, the ethylene that is produced by the tomatoes, it spreads rapidly and it will cause entire fields to start changing and producing color, which is what is happening here. If you go back a few weeks ago, these tomatoes were all green, or there were select spots where they were starting to ripen up. But now it seems as if the whole field has gone red, which is what we're looking for. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the tomatoes that were ripened using the gas, using ethylene. It's just they don't have as good of a flavor. In some locations, it is easier to harvest the tomatoes when they're green and then gas them. Up here where I live in the Northeast, you can't grow tomatoes all year long. So that is helpful when they can ship them in, and then when they get to you, they're beautiful like this. Now, vine-ripened tomatoes are always gonna be superior, in my opinion. If you wanna pick perfect vine-ripened tomatoes, right when your tomatoes start to change color, just like this one, you can pull that off. You can bring it in your house, you can put it in a basket with other tomatoes, and they will all ripen up to a beautiful red color like this. See, by picking the tomatoes early, it reduces the risk of loss. There's less chance of animal damage, there's less chance of pest pressure, and the weather. The weather plays a big factor in tomatoes. And in the upcoming weeks, we have a high chance for these tomatoes to start splitting. Sometimes it is the safe bet to harvest tomatoes that are on the lighter side and then have them ripen up in a storage area. But for us, we have so many tomatoes and we have so much going on, it would be crazy for us to think that we could get all these tomatoes harvested before they really start to ripen up, which is what we're getting today. We've talked about this in the past, about tomatoes and about ethylene, but I just think it's something neat that not enough people know about, and I think it's something you guys enjoy hearing about. I'm no scientist, but I am a farmer, and when my dad explained it to me, it just clicked, you know, it made sense. That's why I think harvesting tomatoes is one of my favorite things to do. It's just neat to think about how these tomatoes grew, how they started to ripen, and they taste good. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a good tomato? A little bit of an update, we have not moved that far, and we've got 6 baskets of plum tomatoes. Another little update for you, just got my 8th basket filled, and right when I finished off my 8th basket, the boys showed up with the side-by-side. So I am no longer out here picking tomatoes by myself, which is a good thing, because we need a lot. What are we thinking, boys? I think the tomatoes look good, but what are you guys thinking?
I'm finding tomatoes here.
I haven't moved my basket. I just set it down and I'm filling it right up.
My tomatoes look nice.
See, I wasn't fibbing. I was telling the truth. Everybody thinks the tomatoes look good. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Just picking tomatoes.
Why are you picking in my row?
What do you mean? I was here first. You're picking in my row. When you really get down to it, it's a good thing we have all these tomato orders because there's tons of tomatoes out in the field. But for a few other reasons, it's a good sign because we are starting to see bird damage. These are from crows pecking holes in the tomatoes. And although I haven't shown it on camera, I have seen it in quite a few spots, which is not a good thing. It's not the end of the world because all the tomatoes have not been affected, but the fact that we have a lot of orders is good so we can get them moved out. Another thing that's good is it hasn't rained in quite some time, which is something that we were starting to like. You know, things were drying out. However, last night's 1.5 inches of rain kind of scared us because tomatoes split when they start to get too much moisture as they ripen up. And if they split, the bugs get in them right away and then we can't sell them. So what we have to be concerned about is the next 5-6 days, there's chances for showers every single day, which is not good because if we start to get too much moisture, these tomatoes are gonna split and the bugs are gonna make homes in all of the tomatoes. So it's a good thing we have these orders. Trying to beat the elements here and beat the animals. Hopefully we can do it. Whatever we find is gonna be good, but as long as we can get plenty of orders filled and we'll have plenty of tomatoes for the customers that are just out shopping, we'll be happy. Because you'd be surprised how many people just show up and want 5, 6, 7 boxes of canning tomatoes. So if we have the tomatoes in the field, we might as well pick them so that when people do show up and want tomatoes, we can provide them with them.
We have 3 grand.
These are all the baskets that I had brought with me when I came out here early on. I have 13 half bushel of plum, and the boys have done a good job at picking plum up to where I was. So we've got quite a few baskets already filled.
Andrew, I can't believe you.
What? What are you talking about?
I mowed off all these fields and you didn't say a word.
I'll have you know, Daniel, in the last video, I talked about how great you did.
Oh, well, that's good. I worked really hard at mowing these off.
I can tell. It looks like you turn the steering wheel this way, and then you turn the wheel this way.
I had to back up. My arms are getting sore.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, Daniel. My picking hands are getting sore.
If your hands moved as fast as your mouth, we'd be done already.
Oh my goodness, who am I talking to? Daniel or Grandpa over here? We got a few more baskets picked. The boys have been carrying theirs down. I left all mine up here, so now I have to carry all these down there. Oh, this is a shame. There wasn't too much up in the plum, but down here in the round tomatoes, ay, ay, ay. The birds are causing issues. Look at this beautiful tomato. Ay, ay, ay. This is just a beautiful sight. All these tomatoes, gotta love it. Just got all the plum tomatoes carried out. We have a nice line right here. Matthew did have to run back to the farm quickly with a few baskets because we had people show up for orders and we had no tomatoes there. So we were done with picking plum, but we're gonna get a few more baskets. That way we can take 25 home. But I just have to say, this is a sight that we love to see. Ooh, look at all those maters. Something else that's really neat, and I wanted to show you, these are what the rows look like before we go through and pick, and this is what they look like afterward. You can tell there is much less red than that's there before, and that's exactly what we're looking for. As a matter of fact, the only red you see here is tomatoes either that one we weren't able to harvest because of bug damage or bird damage, or it was something that's been split from the moisture. All the plum tomatoes that we needed for the day have been harvested, so we are good for now. What's funny is a lot of people forget that I only film 3 days out of the week. That does not mean we aren't working and harvesting the other days. Oh, we're picking stuff every single day. So what you see us harvest and what you see us do here on the farm is just a fraction of everything that gets accomplished. But I just love making these videos for you guys because it just gives you a glimpse into the life of a vegetable farmer and what we go through. I guess at this moment I'm harvesting tomatoes, which are a fruit. So that makes me a market farmer right now. I mean, I still call myself a vegetable farmer, but either one works. Here is everything that we've got loaded onto the wagon so far. We need a few baskets of tomatoes and then we are gonna be done with picking. Tomatoes are now all picked and everything is loaded onto the wagon. So all we have to do is get this back to the farm and run these through the washer and sort them. We also had a little side mission while we were out here. We needed a little parsley. We got some curly and flat leaf parsley. This stuff? Oh yeah. Tasty. This tree right here snapped in half. There's a powerful storm. There's a tree over there, snapped in half. There's a tree right down there, snapped in half. And in that little patch of woods right next to the farm market, there were trees falling like crazy. That storm we had yesterday was no joke. We had a pretty intense morning getting our farm market all put back together and getting these tomatoes harvested. And it turns out that right when we got home was just in time for lunch. So we're gonna head up and eat. And let's see what we are having for lunch. Ooh, it looks like we are having taco salads. And we've also got some fresh veggies cut up here. All finished with lunch, and that brings us down around back. Dad and Matthew ran off in the side-by-side because we needed a few bell peppers and we didn't have any. So they're out picking peppers, and Daniel and I are gonna get working on cleaning up and sorting these tomatoes. And the first thing we're gonna be putting through the washer is our plum tomatoes. You've watched us do this a few times. We're basically just sorting out all the ripe tomatoes so that we can take them up top. And anything that is not ripe yet is left down here and given the opportunity to ripen up within the next few days. Plum tomatoes have now all been ran through the washer. Now we're working on the round. Now the round is pretty interesting. We have a canning basket. We have a basket of tomatoes that aren't fully ripe yet, that will need to ripen up. And then we also have a basket of number ones, or perfect tomatoes. The canning tomatoes are a little cheaper because they can have nicks and imperfections. The number ones have no imperfections. So we sell those inside as slicers. We get a little bit more for them. And then the green ones, you guys know, they're just gonna stay down here until they ripen up. You know what I noticed as I was loading tomatoes onto here? There are a lot of tomatoes that are just dirty. I think that's from the pounding rain that we had. It usually splashes mud up onto the tomatoes. So this washer should take that right off though. I just noticed it as we were picking and while I got here. Tomatoes are now all washed. Everything has been sorted and they're ready to go up for sale. So all we have to do is grab the side-by-side and take the wagon up, get everything put in front of the farm market. And I think that'll be the tomato orders that we need for today and tomorrow, plus some extra. It's always nice to have extra. Tomatoes are now all on the porch and we have plenty of canning tomatoes put in boxes for the orders. So any customers that show up, they can have their fair share crack at these. So the next part of our day brings us out to the pepper field. We've had a hard time recently when it comes to peppers, especially dealing with all the disease that we've been facing. But just because we found some disease in our fields doesn't mean we're gonna stop harvesting. We're still gonna be looking for beautiful stuff. These are the plants I like to see. This one's loaded. All finished with the bell peppers. Now we need some hot peppers. Now these long hots are also being affected by the Phytophthora, but I found a nice section of field where the plants aren't too bad. You'll see it occasionally, but this little section of field, plants look healthy, and it doesn't seem to be as big of a factor. Even when the peppers are riddled with disease, you can find the opportunity to have a nice harvest. We do need a few more peppers, but for now, these are looking good. You'll notice how some sections are worse off than others. These plants are the same variety that is planted right here. We're not sure if it's because there's weeds in certain areas that help pull the moisture away or what it is, but some of these plants just seem to be affected by the Phytophthora more than others, and it's a shame because we're finding some beautiful peppers. I mean, these are a few of the Italianelle that we found there, and look at this one. We picked bins of these the previous year, bins of them, and now we can only muster up a few baskets. That's enough to make a grown veggie boy cry, but we won't, because things happen. Can't control everything. We just finished off. We grabbed some Italianelle, Cubanelle, bell peppers, and long hots. It is starting to rain here on the farm. Hopefully it slows down because we still have to grab sweet corn for today. We took a little ride back out to the fields because it's sweet corn picking time. We have basically the equivalent of a bin ordered. We also need a bin for us, so it's time to get it picked. We counting? What do you say? Yep or nip? Did you say yep? Yep. Okay. I can't tell. Sometimes it's a yep and sometimes it's a yep. They're very similar. And there is the second bin of corn, which means we are all done with picking. I wanted to bring you all in the cooler and show you a byproduct of all this picking today. All this stuff here is orders or stuff that is gonna be orders. It just goes to show that we have to do a lot of picking around here to keep up with all the orders we have. We just got closed up for the day here at the farm. So that's pretty much gonna do it for us. We're gonna head on home. Hey, something you guys can really do for us is
like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment.
Oh, Gavin is so good at that. Gavin, what's the question of the day?
What's your favorite vegetable?
Well, everyone, now that we are home, we're gonna get ready to eat some dinner. It is date night, but Uncle Matt and Aunt Tracy are coming over. We're gonna make food here. So you guys know what that means. This is where we're gonna end the video today. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.